Hello, my name is Alexis, and I am 29 years old. I balance my professional life between working from home and the office. My husband, Bruce, who is of the same age, shares a deep affection for his mother, Doris. However, Doris often treats me unkindly. Despite the challenges we faced, Bruce and I recently celebrated our second wedding anniversary, and I take great pride in navigating our relationship's complexities. Work has become a sanctuary for me, providing a much-needed escape and satisfaction, leading to several promotions, an achievement not commonly seen among women in my field. Currently, I am on a business trip in Europe, attending crucial meetings. During one such meeting, while my phone was on silent, it began to vibrate insistently. It was unusual, so I suspected an emergency, especially after noticing 5 missed calls from Doris. Concerned, I thought something might be amiss. I decided to step out and call her back. Just as I was about to do so, she called again. "Hello, Alexis, where are you?" she demanded, her tone laced with annoyance. I reluctantly answered, disliking her tone. "Hi, Doris, how are you? Is everything okay?" I queried. "Where are you?" she repeated, her impatience palpable. Although her demeanor was irritating, I was in the midst of an important discussion and preferred to avoid confrontation. "I'm sorry, Doris, didn't Bruce tell you? I'm in a meeting on a business trip. Can we talk later?" I responded gently. "Bruce mentioned it, but what are you doing leaving your house and husband alone? Come back home immediately," Doris demanded abruptly, as usual. Her demands were sudden and unreasonable. "I'm sorry, Doris, but I'm currently engaged in something crucial and cannot leave," I began to explain, but she interrupted. "You're so controlling even though you're just Bruce's wife. I don't care about your excuses. Come home right now." Her words were sharp, and though they stung, I had to maintain my composure for the sake of my professional responsibilities. Today was turning out to be unexpectedly pivotal. "Do you realize the significance of today?" I asked, clearly bewildered. Alla, smirking slightly, revealed, "We're celebrating my 62nd birthday today." Her tone carried a mix of triumph and expectation. This caught me off guard because I remembered her birthday was slated for later in the month. The revelation was even more surprising given that I was in the midst of a business trip. My husband and I had meticulously arranged a special dinner at an upscale restaurant to mark her milestone birthday later on. I was growing weary of Doris's continual attempts to control situations, which seemed to intensify each year, particularly when she knew I was engaged with critical work tasks. "As I've mentioned, I'm currently away on business, so I won't be able to make it back home," I explained calmly. "That's amusing," she retorted sarcastically. "I spoke to Bruce earlier, and he's taken the day off for me. All the relatives will be there. But you, Alexis, are always buried in work. You come off as so detached. How do you think that makes your husband's family feel?" Her words were designed to sting, and I knew if I engaged further, her sarcasm would only escalate. Since I was still amidst an important meeting, I had little choice but to cut the conversation short. "I'm sorry, but regardless of the situation, I can't attend your 62nd birthday celebration," I said. Doris's tone shifted drastically. She inhaled deeply, her frustration palpable. "Fine then, I won't consider you part of the family anymore. Don't bother coming back, it's like a divorce. Bruce deserves better," she declared, her words sharp and cutting. Her harsh remarks left me both angry and distressed, yet I refused to escalate the argument over the phone. "All right, we'll discuss this when I get back. I'm sorry, but I need to go now," I responded. Doris snapped back. "What's with that attitude? I told you not to come back. I'll just talk to Bruce myself." And then she hung up. Drained from the interaction with my mother-in-law, I returned to my meeting, exhaling deeply. After 3 more days of back-to-back meetings, I finally headed home. The entire journey back, I was enveloped in anger and frustration due to the confrontation with Doris, barely recalling the drive itself. When I opened the front door and called out, I heard my husband's weary voice greeting me with a "welcome back." I slipped off my heels and made my way to the living room, leaving my luggage by the entrance. There, amidst a sea of cardboard boxes, was my husband Bruce, visibly perspiring as he sealed them with tape. "What's with all the boxes?" I inquired, my curiosity piqued. Bruce explained that the boxes were packed with my belongings. He recounted that during Doris's 62nd birthday celebration, which had taken place on the day she called me, she had announced to everyone that I had neglected her birthday and had been rude on the phone. She even told the relatives that she wanted me divorced and sent back to my parents' house because I was not a suitable match for her son. This was all too characteristic of my mother-in-law, so I pressed Bruce for more details. "And then what happened? Did your mother tell you to get a divorce and you just agreed to it?" "No, I didn't exactly agree," Bruce responded, his voice weary. "But she insisted that I pack up your stuff. I felt cornered. What was I supposed to do?" He paused his packing, looking defeated. "What do you mean you didn't argue with your mother? Does this mean you're okay with the idea of us getting a divorce?" I asked, my confusion and frustration mounting. Bruce then shared that his father, Russell, had also sided with Doris, telling him, "If Doris is upset, it'll be hard on you. Best to just do what she says." So, Bruce had reluctantly gone along with the idea of a divorce. I was stunned by how easily Bruce seemed to accept his mother's dictate. "What is wrong with your family?" I pondered aloud. "Your father is dominated by your mother, and you just blindly obey her too." It felt as if no one was standing by me. At a loss for words, Bruce finally said, "What my mother decides is final. It's only until she calms down and things settle. This divorce isn't real. I'll come for you when things are better." His eyes pleaded with me for understanding. I wished he would direct that pleading towards his mother instead. How could a grown man like Bruce be so fearful of his mother? I thought to myself, feeling a mix of disappointment and disbelief. There seemed to be no salvaging this situation. I nearly felt ashamed, questioning what I had ever seen in him. As I processed the situation, I realized that perhaps this was an unexpected chance for liberation. Staying with Bruce meant continually facing Doris's antagonism and her constant insinuations about divorce. Parting ways might actually be a stroke of good fortune. I was perfectly capable of supporting myself, and living alone wouldn't mean deprivation of any sort. With this newfound clarity, I faced Bruce and said firmly, "Let's proceed with the divorce." Subsequently, I dialed Doris's number. After several attempts, she finally answered. "Hello," Doris said. I responded softly, "As you wish, we're getting a divorce." Doris's voice was unnaturally cheerful as she replied, "Yes, please leave. Finally, you realize you're not good enough for Bruce. I'm so relieved. Don't worry, I'll find him a new wife who is obedient, pretty, and nice to her in-laws." Her words were dripping with a misplaced sense of victory as she added, "I'm sure Bruce will be just fine. I'll take care of him until he finds his next wife. You don't need to worry about that." After enduring her barrage of sarcasm, I told Doris, "Well, don't misunderstand, it's not just about you." Still buoyed by her mood, Doris retorted, "Oh, you're just a sore loser. Don't worry about me or Bruce, Alexis." She continued, "I've got the divorce papers from the city office and gave them to Bruce. Don't forget to sign them." Then, without another word, she hung up. Bruce, who had overheard my conversation, looked oddly relieved. This prompted me to question his awareness of the situation. "By the way, does your mother know you're actually a full-time house husband?" "How could I tell her that?" he responded, his tone turning serious. "My mother is obsessed with the idea that I'm a high-ranking employee at a big company." "Right," I acknowledged. Reflecting on his behavior, I realized that Bruce had never been transparent with Doris. At home, he lounged in worn-out sweatshirts, but he switched to a suit whenever he had to meet her, pretending to be at work whenever she called. Elisa had proudly proclaimed at her birthday party that Bruce was such a devoted son, taking time off just to be there. She also boasted about his supposed status, claiming he could easily find a more obedient and attractive wife than me. This facade, maintained for the sake of appearances, was part of the bizarre dynamics that had steered our relationship toward this juncture. The revelation of the truth seemed inevitable once our divorce was finalized, But Doris, who held her son in such high esteem, would likely never anticipate that Bruce was no longer employed at the prestigious company he used to work for. In fact, Bruce had left his job about a year ago. What Doris perceived as her elite, high-status son was now an unemployed full-time house husband. Bruce's departure from his job stemmed from a significant mistake that resulted in a demotion, a pay cut, and a formal apology. He likely kept this hidden from his mother, fearing her reaction. The setback had a profound effect on him, especially given Doris's tendency to coddle him. The mere thought of returning to an office environment and facing the repercussions of his error triggered immense anxiety and nausea in him. Initially, he tried to manage the situation by reporting his absences and requesting paid leave, but eventually he stopped calling in altogether. As his unauthorized absences accumulated, he was terminated. Now, without any intention to seek new employment, Bruce relied heavily on my income. He hadn't shared any of this with Doris, knowing she would be both furious and disappointed. I felt a twinge of regret knowing I wouldn't witness Doris's reaction upon discovering her son's situation after my departure. I imagined she would be utterly shocked, perhaps to an extreme extent. However, that was no longer my issue to contemplate. When Bruce handed me the divorce papers, he mentioned they were just a facade to appease his mother. "Okay," I said, processing the information. I promptly filed the papers and signed a lease for a new apartment, moving out as soon as I could. A month later, to my surprise, Doris called. Despite thinking I had severed ties for good, curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. "What do you want now? Aren't you happy to be rid of me?" I asked, my voice tinged with sarcasm. "You're still the same. Just listen to me," Doris replied, her tone unchanged as she spoke of Bruce. She revealed that since I had left, she had visited Bruce's apartment multiple times to help with chores, only to find him idly lounging in his room each time, with no indication of going to work or being ill. Suppressing a laugh, I responded nonchalantly, "Well, Bruce is like that because he has no intention of working again." Doris, seemingly oblivious to her role in the situation, shockingly asked, "Alexis, can you do something about it?" "Why should I? You didn't want me in your family and wanted nothing to do with me," I retorted. It was so typical of her to ask for help only when it suited her, after having mistreated me for so long. The irony of the situation was not lost on me, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication as I realized the full extent of her self-inflicted predicament. Doris then questioned me, seemingly trying to pin the blame on me. "I was wondering if you said something to Bruce before you left." It was astonishing how she was attempting to cast me as the villain, seemingly oblivious to the real issues with her son. "Really, Doris?" I replied, incredulous at her insinuation. "You think I married Bruce just for a luxurious life? Why would the divorce hurt if that were true?" She eyed me suspiciously as if I had married Bruce solely for his wealth. "Are you kidding me? I was the one supporting Bruce financially throughout our marriage. It was me providing for him. Because of Bruce, I couldn't even afford to live extravagantly," I continued. The thought crossed my mind. Should I consider asking for alimony? Doris was taken aback by my statement. "How dare you make up something like that, Alexis? You just forgot to ask for alimony, didn't you? Bruce has a higher income and position than you. Don't be so unreasonable. If you want money, Bruce can pay whatever you want. After all, he is a high-level employee at a major company," she retorted, her argument as preposterous as ever. Perhaps Bruce hadn't yet told her the truth. I didn't want to seem like I was merely gossiping, but I saw an opportunity to set the record straight. "Your proud son is a full-time house husband. He quit his job a long time ago," I revealed. "You're lying!" Doris shouted, her voice so loud I thought it might damage my eardrums. I pulled the phone away from my ear and suggested, "Why don't you check with his company? You'll find out who's telling the truth." Doris went silent for a moment, then, her tone noticeably softer, she stammered, "Well, what if that's true? How are we going to manage? I can't support my son on just my pension, and no one will want to marry him if he's unemployed. What are we going to do?" I couldn't help but grin at her sudden change of heart. "What shall we do?" I echoed her words, amusement in my voice. After a pause, she mumbled something to someone beside her. Then, with a completely altered tone, she pleaded, "Hey, Alexis, will you please come back home?" Her sudden shift puzzled me, but I replied firmly, "No, we're already divorced. I wouldn't come back to your family if heaven and earth turned upside down." The finality in my voice marked the end of that chapter as I moved on from the convoluted ties that had bound me. As I was speaking to Doris, a commotion erupted in the background. Someone was shouting. It sounded like Bruce. His voice cut through, "I told you I'd come for you when things settled down." Doris quickly responded, "Yes, you could remarry my son if you wanted." "What are you talking about?" I asked, baffled and firm. "No way, I wouldn't do it for the world. Don't joke about this." "Thanks, but seriously, no." I made it clear to Doris that I had no interest in rekindling anything with her son or entangling myself in any more toxic dynamics. I was done with someone who was overly devoted to his mother. "I did what you asked, so please stop changing your mind," Doris retorted. But the tension was palpable, even just through the phone. "There's a bit of verbal sparring here. It's not like you should take my words so seriously. You've been quite dismissive, haven't you?" she added. "I didn't think you'd go through with divorcing my son," she continued, her tone revealing her surprise at my firm rejection. In response to Doris's string of excuses, I replied, "Well, I was just tolerating the situation. Besides, Bruce packed up my things and essentially kicked me out without my consent." I vented my frustration, listing all that she had orchestrated against me. "You see, that was just a prank," she claimed nonchalantly. "A prank? It's worse than that," I said, utterly exasperated. There was nothing more to be said. Glancing at my watch, I noted it was nearly 2:00 p.m. My lunch break had been squandered on this fruitless conversation. "Ah, Doris, are you done now?" I asked, eager to wrap up. "What, Alexis? What did you say?" she replied, her voice sickeningly sweet. Did Doris think that a sweet tone would soften my response? Knowing I would not meet her expectations, I said firmly, "I'm going to hang up now. I have another meeting in a few minutes and need to review some documents." As I began to disconnect the call, Doris persisted, "Wait, Alexis. Hey, Alexis, say something." I could hear her shouting as I hung up, leaving the chaos and the unwelcome entreaties behind me. I was ready to move forward, free from the turmoil that had entangled me for too long. During the chaos of our phone call, Doris also took the opportunity to berate Bruce, chiding him for mishandling the situation and pointing out the consequences of his actions. It became evident that Doris was quick to blame everyone else for her troubles. Completely drained by her behavior, I ended the call and decided to block her number for good. Afterward, Bruce tried repeatedly to reach me. Seeing a clear path forward, I consulted my lawyer to seek alimony. Faced with the prospect of legal action, Bruce's family, likely anxious about the ramifications, agreed to settle the alimony in a lump sum payment. It seemed my former in-laws had to advance the money, which left Russell and Doris consistently agitated with Bruce. They urged him daily to find a job and work, which only added to his frustrations. Ultimately, Bruce moved back into his parents' house because he could no longer afford his apartment rent. He blamed his parents for his situation, which was now straining their finances, including their pension and retirement savings. Like mother, like sons, they continued to blame each other for their predicaments and refused to reflect on their contributions to the mess. They were even considering applying for welfare, a move I hoped would make them realize that their selfish behavior couldn't continue indefinitely. On a brighter note, for me, the business proposal I made during my trip was accepted, leading to a significant contract. This achievement resulted in another promotion, a higher salary, and a more affluent lifestyle. Now enjoying the freedom of a rich bachelor's existence, I was relieved to be free from the torment of in-laws and financial dependence on family members. Reflecting on the past, if I ever consider marriage again, I will undoubtedly conduct a thorough background check to avoid any mama's boys or troublesome in-laws.